I'm not going to talk about who we are, because I think more important is where we are. I think there are a number of people in this audience who have been a part of our learning journey. Some of them are clients, and so many others. And we have always visualized that we belong to this space where people are creating their own solutions. And that's where the last line is our company, where we believe that this is where we need to provide people the platform for imagining their futures. So what are we looking for? This is something interesting, is really looking for the renaissance driven by everyday people. Things where the creativity of everyday people is driving creation of systems and this world and the life. And reinventing a new model of participatory development that's not just dependent on manipulation of consumer greed, but something that really creates value. I've quoted Ivan Illich, who talked about, in 1973, the seeds of co-creation were planted by Ivan Illich. And I believe that to bring about co-creation, we need to develop new competencies within organizations, new relationships, new ways in which people can not just protect their existence within boundaries, but reach out and work with each other and develop new tools in which they can communicate and create value. What have we seen and experienced? I think this is a concept I introduced in my interview with the Asia Society website, where I talked about designers have to get up from being micro designers and become macro designers. To participate in public policy, I find in the politics of the world, economists, engineers, lawyers participating. I don't see designers participating. And I think we need to, unless we participate in the politics of things and participate in public policy, we are only going to be talking to each other. Building social capital, that's another thing that I learned from, not from my own pursuit, but from my wife's pursuit in her PhD is, I think it's not just about profit, it's about social capital. And we are clearly seeing that when networks are established, and Robert Putnam talked about trust, reciprocity, and networks being the measures of building social capital. And I think that's another thing that both corporations and public organizations need to pay attention to, that happiness and well-being is more related to social capital than profit. I'm not saying profit should not be considered, but that's something that is a challenge for us. Developing a sustainable planet. I travel a lot around the world, more so in the last 5 years, talking to people about their dreams. And I can tell you the young, the youth, are only talking about sustainable planet. That's their ideology, not Marxism, not capitalism, it's sustainability. How do we respond to that? People are talking a lot about socially responsible corporations. Are corporations up to it? That's something we need to talk about. And co-visioning the future. We need to create infrastructure for people to co-vision the future, because I've learned that the future looks different when you see it through the eyes of everyday people. I learned after traveling around the world that sometimes I know more about the life in China, how Chinese people look at the future, than how my daughter does, because I always took her for granted, and I never cared to think how she looks at the world and how she looks at the future. So what have we learned? I think the biggest tool that we have at hand, amongst various other things, which I'll be talking about in my tour, at the heart of everything is storytelling. I'm not going to read out everything, but I think building a quilt of stories from the imagination of everyday people and making that a part of your organization, it has the most power to co-create solutions that are meaningful to a variety of perspectives. And I think that's what is important, and that has immense potential because stories inspire imagination of another reality. That's what we grew up with, and that's what can be the basis of co-creation. So my questions for debate. Are we ready to macro design? Do we have the guts to go and participate in public policy? Or are we just going to be selling our services to these guys? Are global corporations ready to go global? Thomas Friedman introduced the concept of global when he talked about pizza being the most global product. The base is still the same all over the world, but the topping changes. But in the person who eats pizza, it's still the same product, though as attributes, it's different in every country. Can we create a concept that's universal, but the experience is local? Are governments and companies prepared to focus on building social capital? Are designers willing to forego ego and embrace empathy? Can we build networks to co-create, designing with people instead of designing for people? And can ultimately designers limit their role to building infrastructure for people to create their own solutions and their own experiences? Because we can't design experiences, people create their own. Thank you.